out. It's being hollowed out from inside, and we are starting to see the movement towards collapsing our national parliament in order to allow the European system to take precedence.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps some of your listeners will say, well, this is really an amazing statement, and I don't believe it. And my reply to the people who doubt what I say is that we have documentation which is showing the movement to installing the European system by deceit. We have declassified secret and confidential documents which show, as early as 1972, the intent to collapse democracy in UK by doing it out of sight to the general public. Now, what I found interesting is that from the talks that I've done, and particularly the web interviews and some of the TV interviews I've done, I rapidly was contacted by people from other countries, and certainly from people in the United States, and they said that they were starting to see the same techniques being used within their society. So I can certainly tell you that I've got a lot of American people who are extremely knowledgeable who are saying that they are seeing the same third sector, the same third way being set up in America.
Yeah.
The other clue we get to the system that's being used against us comes from Common Purpose themselves, because we have documentation where Common Purpose is saying that Common Purpose networks will soon be very important. Now, we first saw these documents about 18 months ago, but they are talking amongst themselves, if you like. It's Common Purpose leaders talking to other graduates, and they are saying, I'm paraphrasing, prepare yourself, because our networks will soon be very important. And we're now starting to see Common Purpose expand its activities to link Common Purpose cells in Europe together with the Common Purpose cells in Britain. So this network of operatives is now being spread out from UK through Europe and further afield. And I think you said to me a few minutes ago that it was also appearing in Sweden, but you couldn't see much of it.
No, exactly.
So
not yet.
The techniques are definitely being spread on a European scale, and I can tell you that we also know Common Purpose has now become very active in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, for example.
Yes.
So I want to be careful here, because there's so much to talk about, and I don't want to be pulled too far off the key subject of Common Purpose. But I have to say that we are seeing evidence that the Common Purpose controlling networks are not just designed to control UK, they are designed to control large world regional areas.
Yes. Brian, I'm just looking here at the website called commonpurpose360.org. Have you heard about this? This seems to
be
the...
I have.
You have? Okay, yeah. This is the online platform for those who are participants of Common Purpose, right?
Yes.
So it's interesting. And
well, 360 was very interesting to us. One of the things that I've got to say is that as we've investigated Common Purpose, we have become very, very interested in the language that Common Purpose uses and the language which is used by the new political establishment in UK.
Yeah.
So, for example, I was talking earlier about a course which Common Purpose called the Matrix course.
Yep.
And a matrix is, of course, a network. That's one description. And then we have the 360 program, which, to my mind, is indicating that the connections between people is going to be a complete circle. And I'll just say what I believe, because I couldn't prove this for you, but I believe that that 360 is a reference to global connections.
Yes, yes. So this could be the driving, if you will, ideology for the people who are gonna administrate, if you will, the new world order structure or system that is going in. And in one sense, again, I want to bring up that idea that to me it almost seems like it's an invasion in one sense. It's an invasion of an ideology, right, Brian?
Yes, but the absolute danger of this system is that if we go back to wherever we want to go, if we go back in the 1920s or the 1930s or even the 1950s, I'll take communist doctrine or Marxist. We'll base it on Marx, because then we're talking fascism and communism.
Yeah.
But Marxist doctrine had to be sold to individuals. If you wanted to spread Marxist doctrine, what you had to do is you had to gather groups of people together. You had to educate them in Marx. You had to get them enthusiastic in the ideology, and then you had to select the activists who would then go out and spread the word. But the techniques that you were using were normal teaching techniques. You might use rhetoric, you might use heavy-handed indoctrination by giving people a lot of material over a very short space of time and putting them under pressure. But people who sat in the classroom, for want of a better term, knew what they were looking at, and their minds dealt with the material on a normal basis. What is so utterly dangerous about what we're seeing, not only with common purpose, but we're seeing neuro-linguistic techniques being pushed through other courses, is that people's minds can be changed without them even knowing that they have been changed. And again, I'm going to say, for listeners who doubt this, do the research yourself, and you will find that neuro-linguistics, with a skilled operator, is quite capable of changing not only a person's political views, but more importantly, their world and social views in a very short space of time. So it's dangerous because NLP is a form of hypnosis, but you will not be aware it's being done to you unless you have some knowledge of NLP yourself. Now, if I reinforce this system, have you heard of a company called Amway?
Amway? No, I haven't.
Well, I'm going to say many people have, and certainly many people in America, Britain and America. This was a network marketing company, and it became very, very big about 10 years ago. And the way it worked is that instead of setting up shops where you were going to sell a product to people, what you did is you recruited a person, and when they sold your product, they earned a percentage based on how much they sold.
Mm-hmm.
They were also taught how to go out and recruit other people who would then work for them, and they would get a proportion, in addition to their own percentage, they would get a proportion of the percentage that was paid to the people they recruited.
Right.
So what you were doing was shifting very, very large quantities of a product by using a network of people that was itself recruiting more people into the network. Now, Amway ended in disaster because I believe there was a very big fraud scandal which brought the company down. Apologies, Amway, if I've got that wrong, but I think I'm correct. But what we can say is that with common purpose, for example, you are seeing this pyramid selling technique being used to promote a political ideology where people are unaware that ideology is being driven through.
Yeah.
And that is what makes it so dangerous.
A kind of a pyramid scheme in one sense, right?
Yeah. Now, we said originally that Common Purpose alone has been going in UK since 1985. So this organisation has been working very hard, and according to its own literature, we have over 25,000 people in this country who've been trained, but we've also got Common Purpose in other areas. Perhaps equally as important, we are now seeing the neuro-linguistic techniques being applied through other courses. Now, those might be a course for management. It might be a diversity course. In fact, some of them can have perfectly innocuous names, but we're seeing the neuro-linguistic techniques being used on people predominantly within the public sector, so within school teachers, people in hospitals, people in local government. These are key people for this neuro-linguistic training, upon whom this training can be used.
Brian, do you have, or is there something that you're working on right now in regards to putting up more information about NLP, like on your website, so people can get familiar with some of the terms?
Well, I've got to admit that I have trouble with keeping up all of the bits, so my website is a little bit stale at the moment.
All right.
But we're going to do a big update, which will include what we're learning about the neuro-linguistic side.
Perfect. Wonderful.
And really, the best bit about this is there is so much material on neuro-linguistics on the internet that people can very quickly do the research themselves.
Yes.
Once you're happy, you're confident that neuro-linguistic programming is real and it can be used, and it can be used to change your values and reframe your mind, then all I am doing is saying we're now seeing those techniques being used to change people's political and social agendas.
Yeah.
I wonder whether I can just add to that by saying that within UK, we are also starting to see some very disturbing changes in people. I talked about the police earlier on, and many people say that the British police have gone from being polite and respectful to the general public to increasingly aggressive and domineering.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that we know is going on is that neuro-linguistic programming is being used within the police training academies. I can prove that. We know who the people are who are doing the training. What are they giving the policemen in their training? Well, even one of the major papers, I think it was the Daily Telegraph in the UK, said recently that it was evident that the police had begun to regard the British public as their enemy.
Really?
Now, that's a very, very interesting statement, and I think we need to ask the question, well, when did they begin to regard the public as their enemy, and why? Now, a little while ago, I got a very good clue to this because a young lady contacted me one evening. She'd listened to one of my talks about Common Purpose, and she talked about some rather unpleasant things that were happening to her personally. She said she'd talk to me again. I didn't think she would call me, but she called back a few nights later, and she said, I want to tell you something. And what she told me was this, that she had been with her partner, who was a police officer. I think it was for about 15 years. It was quite a long time. And one day he'd come home from work, and when she said to him, what have you been doing today? He said he'd been on a diversity training course. And she asked him what he did on the course, and he didn't really tell her. But a few nights later, they went out for a drink with a friend, and the friend happened to be a coloured guy. And so she said to the other guy, we'll call him John, what happened on that diversity training course? And he said to her, well, if I didn't understand I was black before, I do now. And what he told her is that they asked him a lot of questions. If this happened, Was it because he was black?